nowhere more so than in Boston. The American colonies are critical to Britain's economic prosperity. Boston is a gateway to a market that accounts for 40% of British exports. And American taxes are also taken by the British Crown. The American fishing fleet ships out thousands of tons of salted cod and returns with sugar and molasses to make rum. The British tax both. In Africa, the rum is then used to buy the most profitable cargo of all. African slaves. Between 1700 and 1800, more than 250,000 Africans are brought to the American colonies, more slaves than all other immigrant groups combined. Most slaves wind up on large plantations in the South, but they're also critical to the economy of the North. 10% of Boston's population is black. The city is a melting pot, united in its hatred of the British, and tension is building.
Nobody likes invaders in their homes. To have people here, foreigners on your soil, is a great incentive for people to fight.
On March 5th, 1770, after 3 days of unrest, an angry mob gathers on King Street. Hundreds of men blame the British for taking their jobs and their freedom. They face off against 8 redcoats who've been ordered not to fire. A 17-year-old wigmaker's apprentice, Edward Garrick, provokes a soldier. This is how wars start. Private Hugh Montgomery is hit with a club. An African-American, Crispus Attucks, dies instantly. When the smoke clears, 4 more are dead. Boston's political radicals seize the moment. Silversmith and engraver Paul Revere quickly turns the bloodshed into anti-British propaganda. An explosive image with a title that says it all: The Bloody Massacre.
There was the old joke, you give me a picture, I'll give you a war. Those who wanted to stir things up and to make a statement and maybe even lead a revolution, it made them able to rally others to their side.
There are more than 40 papers across the colonies, and a new postal delivery system has been introduced by the new Postmaster General, Benjamin Franklin. Night riders cut the delivery time in half. The communications network connecting the colonies is one of the best in the world. Before news reaches England, most of America already knows about the Boston Massacre. Incensed at the British actions, 56 delegates from across the colonies gather at the First Continental Congress in Philadelphia. It's the first step on the road to American independence. Among them are radicals John Adams, Patrick Henry, and a gentleman landowner from Virginia named George Washington.
At a time when our lordly masters in Great Britain will be satisfied with nothing less than the deprivation of American freedom, it seems highly necessary that something should be done to maintain liberty.
Across New England, people prepare to defend themselves. Smuggled arms are collected and stashed in secret hideaways.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Spring 1775, near Concord, Massachusetts. Local gunsmith Isaac Davis puts the town militia through basic training.
American patriots knew that they were doing the right thing. You're starting a birth of a nation. You know, you had to really believe in what you were doing.
You gotta keep this clean here, sir. You keep that clean, it'll save your life, you don't?
If war comes, this will be America's first line of defense, a volunteer home guard.
Gentlemen, it's looking good, it's looking good. Let's have some breakfast and move out. Show those redcoats what...
They're ordinary Americans, farmers, blacksmiths, and shopkeepers. Every town across the colonies has its own militia. But by 1775, they're preparing to defend themselves against the British Army.
Better than yesterday. Leroy, that's embarrassing.
In Massachusetts, a third of all men aged between 16 and 50 must be ready to bear arms at a minute's notice.
Excellent, good shots. We keep this up, we're gonna give those redcoats a scare, all right?
At midnight on April 19th, 1775, 900 British redcoats leave their Boston barracks for Lexington and Concord, about 30 kilometers away. Their orders: arrest the rebel leaders and seize their weapons. But news of the plan leaks out to Paul Revere, who sets off ahead of them to alert the militias. His warning spreads from town to town across the New England countryside. Revere arrives in Lexington ahead of the British.
The British are coming. We need to warn the militia. Get them together. Come on.
By 5 in the morning, 60 militia, commanded by farmer John Parker, face hundreds of well-armed and highly experienced British redcoats. What happens next will change the course of history.
These guys were revolutionaries, they were scallywags, they were rebels. Some of them were gentlemen farmers, some of them were overeducated, some of them were undereducated. It really was the birth of a nation.
The Lexington militia gathers on the village common, dairy farmers and shopkeepers, but also among them are free African Americans and slaves.
It is a unique experience that African Americans have had in the military in America. African Americans fought for the country even before it was a country.
African Americans like Prince Estabrook.
You give me training, you give me a weapon, and I can perform as well as you can, then there is no power on earth that's going to hold me down forever.
Stand your ground. Don't fire unless fired upon. But if we mean to have war, let it begin here.
Captain John Parker once fought on the side of the British. A quarter of the men standing at his side are related to him. No one knows who fires the first shot at Lexington. But it's the shot heard round the world.
I mean, the redcoats, that's intimidating. The way they move, the way they march, the way they execute on that open space. I imagine on some level for the guy who works the printing press, this is overwhelming, beyond anything you could possibly articulate in words.
Prince Esterbrook is hit in the first volley. The rebels are outnumbered and outclassed. Within minutes of the first shots fired at Lexington, 8 rebels are dead, 10 wounded. The American Revolution has begun. June 1776. America has been fighting Britain for over a year. New York City has just 20,000 inhabitants. But the British make it their priority. They see New York as vulnerable to their massive military sea power. New York will have to defend itself against the largest land invasion in American history. 5 kilometers north of Wall Street, where 23rd Street crosses Lexington Avenue today, the rebels dig in to defend New York at Kips Bay. Commander-in-Chief of the rebel army is General George Washington. Joseph Plum Martin was inspired to fight under Washington's command. He enlisted at just 15. A farm boy, he's joined thousands of untrained volunteers.
Our Revolutionary Army was quite something. It was in a nation that wasn't really a nation yet, just starting out. And we took on the greatest superpower of the time.
Washington's inexperienced recruits are about to face the best equipped and most powerful fighting force in the world. On June 29th, 45 British warships group a few kilometers off Manhattan Island. These ships are the greatest war machines of their day. Built from over 2,000 century-old trees, each carries hundreds of soldiers. They're armed with up to 64 heavy cannons, capable of hurling a cannonball to a target nearly 2 kilometers away. Another 350 ships have already set off to join them. The British plan is to terrify the rebels into submission. Instead, it inspires them to resist. On July 2nd, they call a crisis meeting in Philadelphia. 50 delegates from the 13 colonies hold an emergency session of their newly formed assembly, the Continental Congress. Delegates include radicals like Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams. They debate nothing less than high treason, total independence from Britain. Their penalty is death.
We're in the midst of a revolution, the most complete in the history of the world.
It's the birth of American democracy.
We have to expect a great expanse of blood to obtain it.
Some delegates don't believe the rebels stand a chance.
We are about to brave the storm in a skiff made of paper.
But the doubters are outnumbered nearly 5 to 1. On July 4th, 1776, the delegates ratify a document that will change the world. The American Declaration of Independence.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights.
Now think about that.